Hello, nerds. I am back here with Greg Tanaka, who has been on the show before. And this time it is a very exciting race for the district of the 16th District of California because the incumbent, Anna Eshu, has elected not to run. So it's a wide open field. And Greg, you've been at this before, so a lot of people may know you already. But why don't we kind of just start with a little bit about your background and why you've decided to run?
Sure. Well, first, Tom, thank you for having me over here again. I really appreciate it. I had, it was great chat with you last time, and I love what you're trying to do. I'm, very much kind of like one of those STEM kids. I very focused on math and science, computer science, all that kind of stuff. And probably my high school yearbook would say, the kid most likely never to run for anything. And so I, my idols were like, the entrepreneurs, the like Steve Jobs of the world.
Hmm.
And I didn't really follow politics that whole lot. I know there's some people growing up, they were like, they went to Boys State, they,
Hmm.
really kind of were really steeped into politics. But for me, I was very kind of steeped into technology. I really love, I mean, I started programming when I was 6. I won my first programming contest when I was 7. I was all that total route. Went off to Caltech and Berkeley, studied computer science. I also attended Stanford as well. And so I never thought I would actually be running for anything, let alone be on city council. But what happened was I got started in this area because I was in a condo association, and I wanted to put a laundry unit in my unit. And I asked them, "Hey, can I get a laundry unit in here?" And they said, "No, you can't do it. Just not allowed." They said, "There's an opening for a treasurer." I said, "Okay, I'll be treasurer." And as they got to know me, they said, "Oh, yeah, that laundry unit you wanted? No problem, just go for it." And then once I did it, everyone else did it, right? So that's kind of how I went from that's how I went from like being pretty agnostic to politics to kind of getting involved. Was I realized you could sit around and complain, or you could get actively involved and change something for the better. And after we did that, we got rid of the laundry units, and now that it became storage for people, and so it just worked out for everyone.
Yeah. Well, and I see that you are currently a Palo Alto council member.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've been working on in that capacity.
Yeah, I so the reason why I got into city council was and I wasn't planning to run, but what happened was the mayor at the time was trying to ban software development. So he wanted to make it illegal to do coding, like like Python coding or Java in Palo Alto, right? So this is a place where um,
What was the
it used
rationale
to.
for that? Why would why
Oh,
would they
there's too
want to
much
do that?
traffic and parking problems in our city, and so he wanted to drive out the tech companies.
Oh
And
wow.
so Palo Alto is a very old city, like 125 years old, and there's a list of loud uses like laundromats, restaurants, etc. Right?
Mm.
And software engineering, because it's relatively recent, is not on that list.
Mm.
So one of the first things I did was to legalize software development, right? So, but ironically, I think there were 3 people who voted against it. There were 9 of us at the time, but it was a 6-3 vote. And then the other thing I try to do, I don't know if you know this, but it's like, do you ever watch HBO Silicon Valley?
I have watched it. I don't watch it a lot, but I've seen
Okay.
episodes. Yeah.
Okay. So there's an episode on there called Server Farm, where um, basically, the neighbor was going to blackmail them for like running a server farm in their garage. So, you know, some cities are like Palo Alto are somewhat very restrictive about running any business out of their house, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
the HP garage, how they had 2 guys in the garage, or like how
Mm-hmm.
these people had a bunch of guys in the house. So, um, you know, technically illegal, right? And so I tried to get that overturned, right? So make it basically legal to start a company out of your house. But that did not. It was like I think a 6-3 vote the other way. So I had some wins, I had some losses, but in general, I believe that there's so much focus on who gets a bigger slice of the pie, right? Of the
Mm-hmm.
economic pie, and not enough emphasis on actually growing the pie. And what I love about technology is that it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. It doesn't have to be one side wins and one side loses. actually, if you grow the pie, everyone wins, right? So if you look at technology, right, um, like I recently got a television, right, and it's like, massive, and then if you look at the price of these things, it's just falling like a rock, and it's because technology basically makes it cheaper, right? And so, for me, I'm a really big fan of investing in R&D, investing in technology, because that's the one way we can actually make humanity, if we grow the wealth, humanity is better off, right? And on average, is better off. And so I'm a big fan of trying to increase the productivity of this country so that, basically we can increase people's standard of living. And that's the only way of really doing that, because otherwise, you're just, you know, redistributing the pie. And that's a very, um, it causes a lot of conflict in society.
Yeah, yeah, that's a I win, you lose kind of
Yeah.
world.
But that's how most
Yeah.
politics is. They don't.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm one of the few people that came in politics that come from technology, and we see like entrepreneurs or technology. You create something out of nothing, right? And it's such a powerful concept, right? An abundance mindset versus a
Hmm.
scarcity mindset. I think a lot of
Hmm.
politicians have a scarcity mindset, right? Where it's like, I gotta, move this to there, right? We're gonna give this person a bigger slice and this other person a smaller slice, but it doesn't have to be like that. It could be a win-win. And so I'm always looking out for these kind of win-win solutions.
Yeah, so speaking of technology, I'm guessing you have thoughts on AI.
Yes.
And, I guess my question for you is like, what do you think should be the federal government's role in AI, if anything?
Yeah.
I could, there's different views on that one.
I have very strong views on this. So, in fact, it's one of the reasons why I'm running. So if you look at AI, especially like the large language models, it's probably one of the most profound technologies in humanity. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. A lot of people think, whatever, right? Another crypto craze or whatever. But you know, so if you think about like human history, where you go from oral, like people just talking, to
Mm-hmm.
writing, that was a big shift, right? Because suddenly you could time shift information, knowledge, right, across people, across geographies, which you really couldn't do with oral. Oral, you had to be at that campfire, right, in order to get that
Mm-hmm.
knowledge. But with writing, it really spread. And and if you think about what are these LLMs doing, right, these large language models, it's in some ways a new form of knowledge. It's a new form of knowledge that we've never seen before. And it's better than writing, actually, right? Because writing, you got to read a lot of stuff, and some of the stuff is not very relevant for you. But with LLM, it distills that knowledge into it distills information into knowledge. And I think that's what's really cool about it. So, imagine you could talk to Socrates even though he's long dead, right? That's what LMs essentially are, right? It allows you to actually talk to the fishes. It allows you to have a conversation like we're having, versus, with books, the traditional writing is one way. And if you look at the impact of, let's say, the big shift from like, you know, writing by hand to printing presses, right? That was a big, suddenly the cost of information dropped dramatically by using the printing press. If you look at some empires, right, like the Ottoman Empire decided to ban the printing press, right? Versus like in Europe, it kind of spread like wildfire. And if you look at like what happened to Europe, they had the Renaissance and whatnot, and Ottoman Empire didn't do so well. So definitely, empires that or civilizations that decided to, hold back um, the proliferation of knowledge of information, I think didn't do so well. So, for me, I think that I feel fortunate to be living at this time when this kind of opportunity exists to really improve the knowledge of our society, right? To really increase the productivity of our society through AI. And what that will lead to is much more abundance than we ever had before. I remember way back when, as a kid, I remember people talking about starvation, right? Now people talk about obesity. Obesity is a big issue versus starvation. And and in some ways, it's kind of a nice thing in that we have, we don't, it used to be 99% of us had to work on farms to grow food, right? Like 100 years ago, my dad, he picked cotton in the field, right? This is what he did as a kid, right? And now, you have a machine that does it way better than a human. And instead of having to sweat in the fields picking cotton, you can, be on a Zoom call talking with Tom for Nerds for Humanity. And so, I mean, or like for us, instead of us having to drive all over the place, we can talk through technology. And so technology allows a much greater creation of wealth. And because if you think about, um, you know, for a country, what matters in a country is how much does it produce. And the way you change that production for the country is mainly through technology and education. Through better technology and better education, the country could produce more. And so I'm a huge fan of investing in both those areas because this is how we kind of lift humanity is through the usage of technology.
Do you think the federal government should have any guardrails or restrictions or regulations or oversight of the development of AI?
I don't know if you saw the video from Bill Gurley. It was I forgot, it was like 3,000 miles or something like that. I forgot
Oh,
the
I didn't
exact
catch
title.
that one. I'll have to look at it after
Okay,
this. Yeah.
but it talks about regulatory capture. So it was part of the All-In Summit, and he talked about, like, you know um, basically, whether it's tobacco, the auto industry, or now perhaps AI, um, the regulators get incentivized to help the incumbents.
Mm.
And um, one of the best safe. Okay, first of all, I have a genuine belief that humanity is good. Most people are good. That's what I believe. Um, and um, and AI, I view as more as especially as one that uses it all day long. It's more of a tool than a um, it's not inherently good or inherently evil. It's basically a tool that helps people. And and so I believe one of the best ways we could actually ensure safety for AI is open source AI, right? Is to basically make it more accessible. And so what I love about AI right now is there's intense competition, right? Everyone and uncle is investing a lot of money. It's getting better. It's getting cheaper. Everyone's dropping the prices. And what that's enabling is like one-on-one tutoring for kids. What it's allowing is for people to be 10x more productive. It's allowing just amazing things. Now, are there potential harms? Absolutely, right? But just like a knife could be used to cut bread or cut an apple, or it could be used to stab someone, there's good uses and bad uses. And what we should do is regulate the uses, right? In terms of, if you're going to use it to rob a bank or scam someone, okay, you should go to prison. But a knife by itself is not inherently evil or bad, and AI is not inherently evil or bad.
Greg, have you used any LLMs in your day to day as part of, campaigning or campaign research or in any
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
capacity?
I used it for my own council member office, right? So when people send me email, I vectorize. I'm not sure if you know much about AI
A little bit.
or okay. So do you know what like a vector database is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for those of you watching that don't know what vector database is, it basically allows you to do a semantic search. So I took the municipal code and I vectorized it, right? So basically, when people ask me questions, I can write them, much more, or I vectorize staff reports, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, I use it also in city council. So we get these massive staff reports, and I put it through ChatGPT, right? And basically allows us to make better decisions. I fundamentally believe, if you think about the core, what is politics? Politics is people talking to people. Fundamentally, that's what it's about. And as you know, using AI or ChatGPT, it's amazing at talking, right? And so I think that through AI, our political process can be more transparent, more egalitarian, more efficient. I mean, just to give you an example, like, so we're trying to build like the high-speed rail in California, right? We've been building for like 15 years, some really long period of time. And during that period of time, you look at China. Look at me, they built 100,000 miles of high-speed rail, right? And it's a very authoritarian government, and that's why they could do it. But what if we could have the democracy have to be able to have this kind of discourse, um, but without taking 15 years, right? So as an example, we in Palo Alto we built a pedestrian bridge over 101. I think it was like a $25 million project, but only $7 million of that was actually the actual building, the concrete, the construction workers. Everything else was just talking about it, right? Entitlements, consultants, right? Imagine our democracy could be kind of this um, ability to have this incredible discourse, conversation, debate, but not be so incredibly slow and wasteful, right? So maybe it could be the best of both worlds. And so that's one thing I'm actually really bullish about AI being able to help um, make our political process fairer, more transparent, easier, more efficient. So I think, in fact, if you think about the municipal code or any laws, like some of these laws are like 10,000 pages. I kid you not. They're just massive. Nobody could read it, right? But
Mm.
imagine if it was an LLM, right? Imagine if you could talk to it, right? So, it's like having your own personal lawyer, right? It's like, I mean, in fact, the laws of the future, right? If there's a new colony on Mars, maybe the way they would have their laws wouldn't be, a written document of 5,000 pages, but it would be an LM they could talk to, say, okay, can we do this? Can we do that? Right? Because it's a lot more accessible. Like imagine, like to know if something's legal or not, you have to like read a bunch of stuff. You have to go to law school, right? It's just incredibly impenetrable, right? But with LLMs, it basically surfaces the knowledge so that you don't have to kind of guess like, oh, I don't know. I have to go pay someone, $500 an hour to tell me, who went to law school to tell me whether this is legal or not, right? I mean, it's not very accessible.
So in your example where you were saying you had put the council notes into ChatGPT, like
Yeah,
what were
yeah.
you using it for? To summarize a meeting or to
No, no. I
extract
used to
certain
ask.
information, or?
I used to ask questions. I use it for every meeting actually. So I have, I put all of the staff reports into ChatGPT, and I ask it questions like, okay, so why should I not vote for it? Why should I vote for it?
Mm,
What are questions I should ask of staff? Um, because in Palo Alto we don't have paid staff, right? So we're basically like volunteers here, and by using this we could do much better, much more thorough research. We can make much better decisions because for us as elected officials, our job is to make the best decision possible for the people, and we can only do that if we're informed, if we could actually understand what's going on. But imagine every single week you get like 1,000, 2,000 pages of stuff. It's really
mm.
hard. Even if you're currently just it's really hard to kind of digest everything, right? And by using this technology we could actually be basically better decision makers. I think that all elected officials should be using this technology, right, to make better decisions for the people.
Yeah. Let me play devil's advocate with you for a second, Greg. How do you feel about a private company, in this case OpenAI, having that kind of influence over how government officials like interpret laws and things like that? Does that feel like it's putting a little bit too much power into that one entity's hands, or?
Well, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what LLMs are. Most people think these large language models, ChatGPT, is like a database, it's like a Google search, and it's different. What these LLMs are, it's more like a processor, right? It's more of a way to process language information. That's a better way of thinking about it. Yes, it does. Um, yes, it can write poetry, and yes, it can do a bunch of different things. But fundamentally, it's not like a book. It's basically okay. So let's think about what's going on here. It takes all the text of the internet and boils it down to, a few hundred billion parameters. Okay, so it's like the most awesome compression ratio ever, right? It's like 1,000,000 to 1 compression ratio, just phenomenal compression ratio. So it's not memorizing everything. It cannot, right? It's not a database. What it's doing is it's finding um, connections between different pieces of information. And so the way you have to think about ChatGPT or any of these kind of LLMs, it's a processing tool, right? It's a little bit like it's more like a CPU than a database, right? But it's like a linguistic CPU or a language CPU in some ways. That's how you have to kind of think about it. So the way I use ChatGPT isn't like, oh, um, is this good or bad? It's not. I don't ask it like that's not what it's more useful for is surfacing information, right? So it's basically like the world's most diligent analyst, right? So I'm not asking it to impart its opinion on something. What I'm asking it to is help me make connections faster than I could do it manually. That's what it is. So it's hard to describe or hard to understand because it's not, like a book. We all know what books are, right? We all know what talking is about, right? So that's very easy to describe. But this LLM stuff is only maybe, ChatGPT only came out like not last November, a year from November. So it hasn't even been a year and a half. So it's relatively new, and we don't even know how to even talk about it, right? But it's not I think a lot there's a lot because the closest thing is maybe like Google, but it's not Google. Google is just an information retrieval information system. What LMs are is not information retrieval, although you can certainly use it for that. It's more of a um, uh, language synthesis tool, right? Language um, analysis tool, right? It's much more of a processor, like a CPU, more like a uh, knowledge processor than a knowledge storage, knowledge retrieval type thing. Now you can certainly use it in that way, but it's a different it's different than where most people I think it is. Just because it can't answer questions like who's the president, it can answer stuff like that. So people use it as information retrieval. But how I use it is not like that. I use it for information retrieval, but I use it largely to kind of put things together faster than I could do myself.
Love it. Well, let's talk about some hot kind of federal issues that are top of mind for a lot of folks in Congress today, and it would be kind of good to get your take on, what positions you would take or how you would look at certain things. Immigration and the southern border, big
Mm,
one. Um, I think most of us in this country trace back to some form of immigration.
yeah.
So I think many of us understand the power and the greatness of the diversity that this country has. On the other hand, like there is a limit to how many resources can be made available to support new entrants into the country, and there
Mhm.
are immigration laws that are on the books. What is your take on the status of the southern border at a minimum, and what would you how would you vote? As an example, like right now, it seems like there was a bipartisan deal that was pretty strong on border security and limits. Would you have been in favor of that as well, or would you have wanted to change it?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So first of all, our country is a nation of immigrants. My great grandfather came from Hiroshima in like 1880. So I'm fourth generation California now, and then from my mom's side, my mom's Chinese, right? So I'm like third generation Chinese, right? So although I can't speak Chinese or Japanese, um, so um, yeah, so I think my personal belief on immigration. By the way, have you ever been to Hong Kong?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so in Hong Kong, are you familiar with the like work visa program?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in Hong Kong, everyone can get a Filipino maid, right? For a nanny, like getting help in Hong Kong is so easy because the work permit there is pretty much automatic, right? If there's a job and there's someone that's willing to do the job that's qualified, boom, they're instant work visa. And I actually think that our country needs to basically do something like that, right? We need to make it way easier to immigrate here. So if there's people that we need to fill jobs with, and they're capable of doing it, boom, it should be like automatic visa. It shouldn't be like if you're like I so my prior company, we had like some incredibly smart people from Stanford, Berkeley, etc. And some of these folks had to go back home because we couldn't get these are people who got educated by some of the best universities in our country, and we send them back home. Like, what the heck, right? We want, you know, in order to back to in terms of growing the economic pie, we want the smartest, hardworking people in our country, right? So people that are educated by our education system, we should almost do the opposite. Not we should not let them go back home. We should make them stay here to kind of work it off. But we have this system, that's crazy system where we will kick out some of the brightest, most educated people ever, and that makes no sense, right? We want talented people here. We want entrepreneurs here. Our visa system's got to be way better, way easier. We need people picking, you know, strawberries in the field, right? So we should have a much more permissive work permit program, and and it shouldn't be like it is now, where you gotta like, pay $10,000 to a lawyer. You gotta like wait years and pray that you don't get deported, and if you lose your job, you're deported. I mean, it's like what the heck, right? It doesn't make sense, right? We want people to help provide services for our country, and to be I actually think it's a little bit racist, to be honest, right? I mean, it's like if you're from China and India, my God help you, right? But if you're from another country, it's not too bad to get in here, right? I think it just, one of the reasons why we have so much illegal borders, because I mean illegal immigration, is because we make it so crazy hard. It shouldn't be so crazy hard. I mean, it's like I think like I said, I think it should be like a quasi automatic work permit visa, like something you do online. Okay, there's a job, to someone who wants to fill it. Okay, you're in. Okay, versus right now you gotta do a bunch of paperwork. You gotta like get an immigration lawyer. You gotta like wait a long time. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's um, I think our country does better when we have smart, bright, hardworking people here.
Yeah, I would imagine a lot of people would agree with highly skilled um, labor that uh, provides capabilities that American companies need. Like, I would imagine a lot of people would be like, yeah, we should probably do as much of that as we can.
But we don't though. I know.
Yeah.
I had one of my employees had to go back to India because even after spending like over 10K with the lawyer fees,
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't get him the visa and he needed to stay here. It's like, what
Yeah.
the heck?
Totally agree. Totally
He had a
agree.
PhD. He had a PhD, right? It's
Yeah, yeah. I know. And our tax money probably went to those
like what
universities that helped
what
educate
what
him.
the heck, right? Well, like what country does that, right? I mean, how
Yeah.
messed up is that?
It is messed up. What do you say about the other class of immigration, which is probably in terms of numbers more representative of the migrant encounters we're seeing on the southern border?
Well,
Those are not CS PhDs.
we don't need those though. We also need people to pick like, okay, example. I'm trying to get someone to repave my driveway, okay? And I'm not sure if you've been trying to get any blue collar work, but it is
Mm.
crazy hard, right? Especially here in the Bay Area. I mean, it's like hard to get people to show up. I mean, there's such a dearth of people. Like restaurants trying to get people to work there is really hard. We need all types of people. We have job openings. In fact, I think there are more blue collar job openings right now than white collar. Because white collar, there's been layoffs at Google and
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, and so there's been a lot of layoffs in tech. So in some ways, ironically, the blue collar side is going strong. Right? There's a lot of need for it, right? So I mean, there is more need than ever for that kind of skill. So I'm not just saying we just need people that have PhDs from Stanford. I'm saying that we have jobs to be filled in every aspect, right? From waiters to people who repave driveways to people to pick strawberries, right? I mean, there's no shortage of work that we need. I mean, like there's a lot of for help wanted signs, right? Especially in blue collar type of stuff, and um, like I can tell you, like a lot of working parents like myself, we sometimes finding childcare is hard, and like in Hong Kong, not hard at all. Like you hire a Filipino maid, it's just not hard at all. I mean, you're probably familiar with that. It's just everyone has. You don't have to be that wealthy to have one. It's not like you're uber rich to have a Filipino maid in Hong Kong, right? But it's because they have a very permissive work permit system, right? It's not crazy hard. You don't need to spend a bunch of money. You don't need to wait years to get in, right?
Understood. Yes. All right, Greg, let's move on to another topic, which is the U.S.'s role in the Israeli Gaza
Mm,
conflict.
yeah.
What's your position on that?
Well, I saw um, on October 6th, I think, all those Israeli who got killed, raped, like tortured, kidnapped. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think it was the worst um, number of like Jewish people getting killed since the Holocaust, if I'm not mistaken. At least that's what I heard. And so, first of all, that's not right. Right? I think that's a travesty. And Israel in general has been a key ally uh, for the country. So I think we got to look at that. Um, at the same time, you see all the people getting killed in Gaza, and you got your hearts kind of go out to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you also hear about like tunnels there, and people using hospitals as military bases and this and that. So I mean, um, that's also not good, right? I think I saw a report where someone shot a rocket towards Israel from the hospital parking lot. Like, what the heck, right? That's so it makes you kind of wonder what's going on. But it's a travesty any way you look at it. I believe what we have to do is um, Israel needs security. I think that's critical. You can't be living when someone's going to fire a rocket towards your country, and I think that's um, I mean, if people were firing rockets towards the United States, we would all be up in arms, I think. But at the same time, I think that there needs to be probably a two-state solution, one where Israel is guaranteed security, um, and that the Palestinians have a state of their own. I think that's probably the only long-term solution. If you don't have that, I think this battle is going to continue on for the next 100 years, right? People are going to be really upset. So it's got to be something like that. Um, but it's not right to go into a country and kill and murder a bunch of people, and that's what happened in Israel. And so, um, and I think that was probably contemplated to kind of create this kind of political backdrop. And so Israel's going into Gaza, and they're probably doing some things that maybe um, for us from the outside looking at it, it looks very tough, right?
Are there any conditions, or under what conditions do you think a ceasefire should be re-implemented?
Well, I think we should have a ceasefire uh, with a path to a two-state solution. Maybe this could be the catalyst. And for maybe, I have kind of a thought where every door that closes, maybe another door opens. So, this conflict has been bad for everyone. And maybe this is the catalyst for creating a true two-state solution. Because I think that's long term. That's the only solution I could think of. I mean, if there are better ideas, let me know. I mean, the other alternative is you wipe out Palestine, you wipe out Israel, and I don't think those are either good options, right? Um, I think, I think Israel has to exist. I don't think that's to say, okay, we're going to eliminate that. That makes no sense to me. And also the Palestinians, would you say, oh, okay, too bad, just go away? I don't think that's right either, right? So if you have both of those assumptions that both of them have to exist, then there's got to be probably a two-state solution. But it can't be a two-state solution, and Israel has to fear for mortars, getting lobbed into their city, is rockets being fired in. That can't work, right? That doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah,
So, but
yeah.
but I mean, if there's a better solution, I'm all ears, right? But I haven't heard of a better solution. But I think that kind of has to be something along those lines, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree that the two-state solution is the only sustainable kind of equilibrium point that we could
Yeah,
imagine. I think there's probably a lot of disagreement on how to get there and whether or not a an immediate ceasefire is a option, or a conditional ceasefire upon release of all hostages, or a conditional ceasefire upon release of all hostages and surrender of Hamas. Like there's a continuum, and like my view is, wow, that area of Gaza has been bombed pretty much incessantly for the last 3 months.
yeah,
And I mean, you watch these videos, like they're like entire blocks are being
yeah,
leveled.
yeah,
Um, some of that ordnance was provided by the United States,
yeah, yeah. Cluster
and
bombs, right?
so yeah,
Yeah,
and daisy cutters, like things that
yeah, yeah,
we
yeah,
didn't use much of even in Iraq.
yeah,
So I'm a little uncomfortable with it. I mean, of course, what happened on October 7th was horrific, and to your point,
yeah,
it was the second biggest murder and violent act against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. So
yeah,
that was a historic event.
yeah,
I do feel like there's some proportionality. I mean, there were, I think, 1,200 people killed, sadly, on that
yeah,
day, and now there are 25,000 dead Gazans.
yeah.
At what point do we stop bombing them?
Yeah, I almost feel like this was kind of like I think Hamas kind of anticipated this, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's to kind of create this, like when I was little, I used to have hay fever, like an allergy, right? So allergy is kind of like an overreaction to something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel like this is kind of like a deliberate, uh, and
Yeah.
I think for a while we had the Abraham Accords, right? There's some kind of looked like maybe some normalization in the area, and it's unfortunate that that kind of all fell apart because eh, you know interesting enough, way back when, before its creation state of Israel, there were actually Jewish people and
Mm.
Arab people living side by side, right? So you know so um And so I think this has to be unraveled, right? And I think the problem is that now there's several generations that's been kind of living under this thing, and um, people just get mad, and just incredibly mad, and I can understand that, because there's like it's like a uh, pressure cooker, it gets hot,
Hmm.
and then at some point it's going to explode like it does now, and if you don't take it off the stove at some point, right? If there's not a real solution, like something like this is going to continue to happen, right? Because people are going to be incredibly angry.
Yeah, it's for sure a mega complex issue, and I'm guessing people will be talking about
Yeah,
it
but
for
I
yeah.
think we have to march towards a two-state solution. There has to be progress towards that. We're like, okay, here's your territories. Probably Jerusalem has to be split, right? Probably, um, uh, you know, the territory that the Palestinians have can't be one where they can lobby rockets and mortars into Israel. That's that's probably not going to work, right? There has to be, they need to have some sort of um, self sovereignty somehow, right? So there's some basic things that has to happen, but I think a lot of it, people aren't talking to each other now, or they're just lobbing rockets at each other, and so yeah, I think what I found even on city council, right? Even when I was a planning commissioner, I found that um, a lot of times people don't talk to each other about the issues, and a lot of times people aren't that far apart. And I found that if you talk to people ahead of time, um, the meetings go a lot smoother. And I think
Hmm.
that right now there's a total breakdown of communication. And I think if you ask the average person, I mean, there's always extremists on one side and another. But I think if you ask the average person, I think most people are reasonable. Most people are not out to, you know, uh, have one side just be obliterated. I don't think that's. I believe in the good of people, right? I think in general. Now you always have extremists, people who say, "Oh, this side's got to be totally eliminated." But I think most people are not like that. Most people are reasonable. That's what I found.
Greg, if you ended up in DC representing our district, what would be the areas where you would want to spend most of your energy? Like, where would
Yeah.
you be excited to kind of contribute the most?
Yeah. Well, one of them certainly is in technology. I think that, um, United States has been a world leader for some time, and mainly because we have better technology than everyone else. I think we need to invest in more technology. We need to invest in education, so we have educated populace. I believe we need to have very smart, hardworking um, immigrants as well. Um, and by investing in technology, by increasing our technology edge, like for instance, I think semiconductors, right? I think if China took over Taiwan, we'd be in big trouble, right? We lose all of our GPUs. So we really need to be stay number one in technology. So that means investing. Like in China, they have this kind of um, initiative to be number one in AI, number one in nuclear power, number one in fusion, number one in superconductors, all this kind of thing. And they're spending billions and billions of dollars on it. The United States doesn't really do that now, right? We don't invest like we used to. And it's hard to stay number one if you don't invest. And so I want to really focus our country on that. I really think that, again, I think technology, increasing the productivity of humanity, right now, all boats get like that tide, right? Like raises all boats. So I would be really very focused on that, really making sure that we're able to get better technology. Like imagine if we had fusion. Imagine if we had superconductors. Imagine if we had like you know AI everyone could use, right? So everyone could be smarter, right, and be more productive. I mean, just think about the good that could happen. So that's one of my big focuses. The other focus is um, this is more of a local thing, but is Caltrain. So in Palo Alto, Caltrain runs about 4 miles through our city, and anywhere you look in the world where we have land values as high as where we are, and like on the peninsula,
Hmm.
um, things are undergrounded, right? But not here, right? Here it's above ground, and but if you underground it, you free up so much land. It was hard to just do for Palo Alto because it's like $1 billion per mile. But if you go from, let's say, Santa Clara, where the BART will stop, all the way up to San Francisco, then it's a lot less, right? Maybe half the price, maybe even a quarter, or if you use the boring company, even less, right? So, and so all that land becomes freed up. So there's housing opportunities, right? We have a housing shortage. It's parks, it's recreation facilities, right? it's businesses. It's a way to kind of free up land, increase safety, noise, pollution. I mean, just all around good thing. So that's one of them. The other thing is, right now I'm not sure where you are, but it's pouring rain here, right? And there's flooding, and for an area as wealthy as ours, we should not. There should not be flooding, right? I mean, it's one thing if we're like rural India or something like that, but I mean to be flooding here in like the tech center of the world, we can't handle flooding. It doesn't make sense. So we need to make sure that as sea levels rise, as we have more extreme weather conditions, that we do the basics. I think the number one duty of a government is to make sure people feel safe, right? And that means people shouldn't get flooded, right? So if a creek's overflowing, that's a big problem, right? Um, and I think the other thing is um, we have our coastal regions, right? Like along like Half Moon Bay, Pacifica, right? And houses are falling into the ocean, right? So we need, that kind of stuff all has to be taken care of. And so I believe that the federal government has been kind of neglecting our area. They think, oh, it's a very wealthy area, so we don't have to worry about, these people take care of themselves. But, people are getting flooded, houses are falling in the ocean, right? Creeks are overflowing. It's a problem, right? We pay a lot in taxes. We're one of the most highest per capita economic output in the world. And so we should invest in this area. We should improve mass transit. We should improve the infrastructure so people aren't flooded. Um, I mean, for that matter, the other part, in terms of transportation, I kind of feel that we should also have some sort of mass transit to kind of like Half Moon Bay, right? That would free up a lot of traffic. That I'm not sure if you ever took 92, but it's a two-lane road, and so all the whole California coast is kind of cut off because we don't have good
Mm-hmm.
access. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, just I think, unfortunately, our federal government really hasn't really been like for an area like ours that has such economic output, we don't invest much in infrastructure for the people that are there, right? And I think if we just do that, um, it becomes a lot more equitable, okay? Because um, like there'd be more housing opportunities. I mean, you could live perhaps right now living in Half Moon Bay, you better not be working, in Palo Alto because it's a bit of a drive now, right? But imagine if there's mass transit, right? It really kind of opens up a lot of things, right? If you want to go to the beach on the weekend, my God, you got this big traffic jam, right? So, I mean, there's so much opportunity by just kind of investing in the area, right? And I think, unfortunately, the people who've been in office before haven't really been focused on District 16 and making it better. And I think it's time that we do that. Um, and Yeah, so I'm those are some of the kind of things I'm a big fan of. I mean, there's other things like um, you know um, admission transparency. So if you ever apply to college, right? Like my son just applied to college last year, and like it's a big black box, right? Like there's a case of a kid here in Palo Alto. He had San Lizong. He had a 1590 SAT. He had, a 4.4 GPA. He won all these programming contests and got rejected by all the colleges, right? Like, what's up with that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, so it shouldn't be black box. Kids, put a lot of effort into it. There should be admission transparency. I think that's really critical. Um, so, yeah, I think kind of get our education going, get our technology going, investing in the community. Um, is kind of critical. I mean, I also think like taxes in April coming up. Why is it that every April we have to play this big guessing game? It's like the mental IQ thing with like doing the tax return, but versus the IRS knows most of what's going on. They should just send us a pre-filled out form. Say, hey, if you agree, pay the bill, done. Otherwise, here's the electronic file. Go edit it to what you want, and then resubmit. Right. But instead, we have this, billions of dollars. Like the average family spends 15, 20, 30, 40 hours on their tax return. It's such a suck on society, right? We should, I mean, we should, the IRS should really do what they do in Sweden and Japan. Send us the tax return pre-filled out. If we're good, just pay the bill and done, right? That's the way it should be. It shouldn't be this big IQ test and, got to hire a bunch of accountants who kind of fill out the tax return, right? It doesn't make sense. Likewise, like, we have this daylight savings thing, right? Where like every, twice a year we're changing the clock back and forth for what, right? Um, there's a lot. So there's a lot of kind of things like that. I just think we should do and fix. It'll make our society a lot better, more productive. Um, but yeah, I mean, those are some. What are some of the
Yeah.
issues that you're concerned about?
Oh, so I appreciate you asking, Greg. I'm definitely concerned about. I would like to see comprehensive immigration reform
Mm,
that is a combination of enhanced border security and making legal immigration easier for,
yeah,
especially for merit-based talent access, and also making illegal immigration harder, um, because I think it's the only sustainable way to kind of ensure that we have resources to support the people that are entering the country.
yeah,
Um, Second, I think I would like to see healthcare more healthcare reform.
mm,
I think it's kind of unfortunate that when people change jobs, they feel like
yeah,
they're unable to really participate in the labor economy, or they're less likely to make some changes because of kind of feeling beholden to the healthcare kind of benefits
yeah.
from that are privately offered. And I think third is I do think about whether or not we are preparing uh, the next generation to solve the hard problems ahead.
Hmm.
And it kind of relates to your admissions transparency stuff. It's a hard one with higher ed, but I feel on the one hand these institutions do a terrific job trying to kind of level the playing field and provide opportunity and access, especially to groups that have been underrepresented or persecuted, frankly. On the other hand, we also need to prepare the next generation of talent to compete in a global stage. And your example of the gun student who pretty much should have been gotten into somewhere, and now I believe he's working at a very reputable company.
He's working at
um,
Google as an L4 engineer, which is,
yeah,
like
yeah,
some Stanford math students only come in at L3, right? So just think about that.
yeah. It's crazy. I mean,
Yeah,
that company will reject tons of Stanford graduates,
yeah,
but it felt like this person had a lot of talent.
yeah.
So to me, it's like, wow, what's going on? And my pet peeve is on the higher ed stuff is how much um, basically affirmative action there is for athletes.
Mm,
Uh, and as you may know, like there's like a separate admissions process for rated athletes.
yeah,
So if you're great at lacrosse or squash or crew,
yeah,
you may not have a 1590 SAT and still go to some really amazing
yeah,
places. And to me, that's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Like these are supposed to be places of higher education where they might participate in athletics, but it's not like
yeah,
an athletics school.
yeah, absolutely. So let me kind of address each of these. Um, so, um, I think for education, I'll go back. So I think for
Mm-hmm.
education, I think that, um, first of all, I grew up in a very poor area. My dad never finished high school. And so, kind of the out for my sister and myself was to get a good education. Um, but I think what we need to do is we need to create more opportunity because I think right now the opportunity is not equal. Like in some areas, schools are really great, but some areas the schools are really bad. I mean, like the school I went to as a kid. Oh my God, you fear for your life, right? I mean, I used to get beat up, robbed. Just I became a very fast runner, not because I was on track, but because I didn't want to get beat up. And so it's really hard to learn in an environment like that, right? Um, and so I think rather than changing, I think it's almost too late to change it at college admissions. It's too late to change it. I think
Mm,
really what should happen is it needs to be fixed at kindergarten, right? I think the education system for everyone needs to be at a certain level of quality, so that there's because otherwise, if you change it at the end, right? It's not really fixing the problem. The problem is back at kindergarten, right? It's the education opportunities all through that time, right? The environment, right? Some people like as a kid, there was like people who shooting guns, right? My neighbor next door got busted for they're running a drug den, right?
mm,
It's pretty big. There was a serial killer who broke into my neighbor's house like 4 houses down from me. I mean, my house got robbed 5 times. Like, it's like it's like it's like it's like um that's where we got to fix it, right? Is that some kids have everything, right? And some kids, I mean, you just feel lucky to be alive, and so But if you change it at the admissions time, it's really too late. We gotta fix it early. There should be no kid should feel like endangered, right? No kid should be getting a crappy education, right? That's what we got to fix, and I think that's where the mistake is right now.
Mm.
Um, and so immigration, I think we're very well aligned.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think yeah, and then I think
Healthcare. Mm.
healthcare. I think um, so. I think the fundamental flaw here is that um, we have this the customer, the patient, the person paying, and the healthcare provider are all it's like this multi-body problem, right? And so I actually think that um, that's kind of the root of our healthcare problem. I mean, nobody really shops for healthcare because insurance pays, right? You don't they think, it's free,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's really not free, right? I kind of feel that, especially like you said about like you leave your job, it's like you're screwed, right? I think it should be based off of like if you want to start a business, a company, I almost feel like there should be like being an entrepreneur is so crazy hard. The chance of success is so low. You pay yourself almost nothing, and um, so we should make it easier, right? We just should be almost like entrepreneurial healthcare, right? So
Mm.
that people, it encourages people to take that risk, right? And so I think that's where the reform has to happen in terms of um, there needs to be better alignment where the healthcare provider, the patient, the insurance company, there's a more direct market forces happening because right now, um, okay, I'll give you an example, right? So, my sister's a surgeon, and um, it's not like she makes gauds of money. Like her all of the procedures are very expensive, but it's like there's all these middlemen, right? Oh, here's a good example. Mark Cuban, he started a drugstore company, right?
Mm.
I think it's called drugstore.com or something like that. And if you buy a drug on his website, it's like way cheaper, like penicillin or whatever it is way cheaper than if you to buy it at Long's drugstore, right? And it's because there's all these middlemen like
Mm-hmm.
that really are just shuffling paper back and forth. And so that's kind of like the crux of our healthcare problem is that it's highly regulated and there's a ton of middlemen who don't really add a lot of value. And I think if we can make it more direct, right? And I think that's what Mark Cuban's company is kind of cool at. It's like it's cheaper for me to go buy something there directly than to get reimbursed and get a copay, right? I mean, it just shows you the level of middleman involved, and that company is making money, right? So it's like uh, it's like there's a lot of opportunity for kind of healthcare reform, but I think that's the direction we have to go in.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I greatly appreciate you coming back on the show, Greg, and spending time with me here. And hopefully, other folks in the district will consult this video as a resource to get to know you better. And for those who are not in the 16th District of California, this is a perspective from Silicon Valley, which would be really, I think, healthy to have in DC, given the rest of the Congress doesn't seem as plugged in. And I appreciate you coming on, man.
Tom, thank you for doing this. I love your videos and keep it up.
Will do. Take care, Greg.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye. All right. So that was Greg Lin Tanaka. And Sue was asking me in the live chat, hey, how do I find out more info about this guy? Well, you guys know what I'm about to pitch, which is ofthepeople.us. So I will show you how to find more info, not just about Greg, but about a ton of other people who are competing with Greg for the same role. So if you go to Of the People, you can actually filter by tags. And there's a tag for CA-16, which is the Silicon Valley district. And this is a very important race because the incumbent was there for 30 years and nobody could compete. So now that she's retired, like everybody's running. And you can see Greg. Greg is here. And if you guys want, if you're wondering, like, whoa, why is he not listed higher? It's based on approval voting. So if you want to bump Greg up, you can go over there and to Of the People, and you just click on the big green approve button, sign in, and he'll be boosted up. I will replace this video with actually our most recent one. And then you can write a review of him as well. So let's see. Why don't I just show you how to do that? Give me 1 second. I'm going to sign in. 1 minute. I'm going to click the sign in button. I stopped sharing. Oh, there we go. Okay, so. All right. So now we're going to go to Greg. Whoops, CA-16. Go to Greg. And I'm going to say here, I spent almost an hour interviewing Greg and met him a couple of years ago, maybe a couple of years ago as well. He's a tech first, thoughtful, positive, and has a servant leader vibe to him. He would fit the bill for Silicon Valley's congressional representative. Well, definitely encourage you to check him out. And then you say submit, and boom, your stuff will be on OTP. And I will fix his embedded video in a second. In fact, I can do it right now just to show you how amazing OTP is. And it's amazing because we have volunteers who help build all the back end to the system, and greatly appreciate everything they've done. Let's see. So there's two of them. Look at that. I see. I will fix that video shortly. But yeah, my take on Greg is I like the guy. He's definitely on my short list. I haven't decided who I'm going to vote for. Last time I voted for Rishi Kumar because I like him and he was challenging the incumbent, and I'm a big fan of fresh blood. I don't like 30-year incumbents. But yeah, now we've got I think there's 10 people running in this district, so it'll be kind of fun to see. Do me a solid and like and share so that more people can discover the voices that may show up in DC voting on major bills. One of these 10 are going to get there. And then let me also do a quick thank you to the people who make this channel possible, which is our channel members. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you want to click that join link, you too can keep this channel content flowing. And part of the costs go towards our podcast hosting fees. So you can subscribe wherever you listen to audio podcasts. Who is our biggest supporter? It is none other than Soldier One, our senior vice president. Thank you, Soldier One. Next level down is our VPs, Kristen Slevin and Bike. And then we've got our hardcore, Gene, David, DK, Jackalego, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn, Yang, Dean, Galessa, Jay Perrin, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Mickey, Yoda, Unkiyu. And then the entry level is only $1.99 a month. Lisa, Brandon, Sophia, Doris, Emerald, Ben, Shoni, Dr. William, Karen, Mai, Brittany, Lori, Wana, Kevin, Hope, T, Jeremy, David, Nicholas, Mike, Zig, Roberto, Jackson, Lantern, Cindy, and Alice. So you all have been awesome. I'm going to try and interview every single candidate running in the 16th district. I also, just so you know, on OTP added the California Senate race. So if you go to OTP, you can then filter by U.S. Senate, USCA right here. And you've got the 4 candidates, Barbara Lee, Steve Garvey, Adam Schiff, and Katie Porter. There's other candidates running. So I'm going to try and add more. But those are the ones. I'm curious. Let me know in the comments who you like. I'm guessing there's a lot. If I know the Nerds for Humanity audience, there's probably Katie Porter fans. But I'm curious. Adam Schiff is leading in the polls. So do you think Adam Schiff, you prefer him, or you prefer Adam Schiff or Katie Porter, or maybe one of the other ones running? Thanks, everybody. See you next time. Bye, nerds.